Alright, stick her up and get in at the negotiation. Alright, stick her up and get in at the negotiation.
Hello. Some of you may remember that 5 years ago I made this video on the AD36 Ekco radio, and by the way it's still available on my channel. But this video attempts to explore some of the history and some of the links behind this amazing firm and some of their other creations. I hope you enjoy. Well, hello again. Who would have thought that it was 5 years ago I was stood in front of this same backdrop introducing the Ekco radio AD36. And since 5 years ago and many haircuts later, lots of things have happened. And although I've made loads and loads of videos, and by the way the old original video is still available on my channel, I am still on the trail of Ekco, and I thought it would make an interesting video to look at some of the history of the company and some of the other products they made, and some of the links from that, including their designers and some of the innovations they made with Bakelite. So that's what this video is going to be about. But before we get started, I think on behalf of you all, and myself included, I'd like to pass on our condolences to the royal family for the sad loss of Queen Elizabeth II, which happened just 4 days ago. And coming up this coming weekend will of course be the funeral of Her Majesty. But let's move on. Ekco and all the products that was associated with Ekco have a long history, and recently I was able to visit 2 museums, and the last one being in Southend, and I'll refer to the other one a bit later. But in both those museums I found interesting things, particularly in the Southend Museum, because Southend, after all, is the birthplace of E.K. Cole and the founding of his radio and electronics factory. So I hope you'll enjoy this reasonably short video and some of the history and some of the items that I discovered along the way. So let's get started. From a first start in a garden shed in 1922, Eric Kirkham Cole went on to establish the Ekco factory in 1930 on a former cabbage patch in Priory Crescent, Southend. Today, the only evidence of this is a statue or a bronze of Eric Kirkham Cole, 1901 to 1966, standing on an Ekco AD65 radio. The mosaic suit that he is wearing is created from 182 fired porcelain photographs of the Ekco factory, its workers, and the products that they made there. Southend-on-Sea is of course the home of E.K. Cole and the formation of his first factory to produce radios. And the Southend Central Museum has the greatest archive of E.K. Cole and Ekco products anywhere in the UK. This includes manuscripts and early documents. This year there's only a little bit on display, but in summer 2023 the museum is showing a full display of Ekco products, manuscripts and history relating to E.K. Cole. The national grid was not created until 1926. Before that, some parts of the country had DC mains and some AC. That's why on the back of this set and some of the earlier sets we see that they were AC-DC, so they were able to run on both systems. Prior to the standardization of the main supply, radio sets were battery powered, which required the use of a low voltage supply usually provided by an accumulator to give the necessary 3 or 6 volts for the low voltage side of the receiver. And it was quite normal for local hardware shops and garages to provide a charging service for these glass and quite dangerous accumulators, as they contained acid and obviously were made of glass. As an interested and quite humorous aside, when I went onto Google and typed in accumulators, all I could get was horse racing tickets, which I suppose today is the modern equivalent, but you can't get much power out of them. Around this time, Ekco commissioned 2 outstanding designers, Serge Chimaev and Wells Coates, both outstanding in their field of architectural design. And this is an Art Deco design by Wells Coates. They were instrumental in moving Ekco forward, mainly in the use of Bakelite to produce curved radios which actually fitted around the speaker rather than the old square type radios. Serge Chimaev was also an important element to Ekco in designing one of the most iconic radios that they produced, again using Bakelite. And this is a classic example of Serge's architecture when he wasn't designing radios for Ekco, and this house is still an iconic tribute to modernism and is still lived in today. Let's recap on some of the iconic designs that Ekco produced. Now these are very collectible and fetching huge prices on the market today if you're lucky enough to get hold of one. But let's move forward. I'll end this section with a look at some of the early assembly procedures. An early picture of the assembly line where these radios were being cleaned and polished prior to the electronics being installed. With the invention of the all-electric radio eliminating the need for accumulators, Ekco's sales soared, and they were very soon to move into other areas, including car radios and televisions, but more of that later. We now come to the war years, a period in which Ekco had very much to do with the MOD. It is somewhat beyond the scope of this video to explore all the activities that Ekco was involved in for the MOD in the war years. They had secret locations at Malmesbury producing brand new radar technology for aircraft and for aircraft tracking, and they had various sites at secret locations throughout the UK developing war materials, particularly receivers and radios. Which brings me to my second museum, which I visited in Suffolk at Sheringham, and this wonderful coincidence, because here I discovered, quite by chance, some Second World War equipment. And this particular receiver, and I'll show you the badge now, was actually made at Southend-on-Sea by Eric Cole. How strange is that? At the end of the war, Ekco began to diversify even further with the formation of their plastics division. They widened their product line to include all sorts of items, including tableware, stackable cups, which we could do with today, I think, even toilet seats. And this was a premium tableware, all produced by their plastics division. So let's have a look at some of the stuff that they produced during this period. I think today, if it still exists, it would be quite valuable. But you can see all this in the huge display that they have at Southend Museum. There is, of course, much more to explore in the history of Ekco, but I'd like to express my thanks to Southend Central Museum, and particularly to Chris Poole and Gordon C. Brown. Chris Poole sadly passed away in October 2012. But if you're ever at Southend Museum, I do recommend you buy this book. It's just a wealth of information about Ekco. That brings me to the end of this video, I think, and we're going back in time, in fact 5 years, because I've just dug out the same t-shirt I had on 5 years ago. So you know, I don't throw many clothes away. Anyway, thank you for bearing with me during this video and my look at Ekco in Southend and the kind of products they produce. As a sad ending to all this, Ekco ceased to exist in 1960. It was taken over by a pie group of companies. I think they were called British Electrical Industries, but their production of radios and televisions declined rapidly due to the influx of Japanese models, and they soon stopped producing them. Ekco did continue a little bit producing other things under the Dynatron name, you may remember that, and also Slumberland electric blankets. I can remember my father buying a Slumberland electric blanket. Sadly, Eric Cole died when he was just 65 years old, and I have it written here, he died in 1966 while due to a bathing accident while swimming in Barbados. There was something that happened to his body when he jumped into the water, and he had this seizure, and he subsequently died of that. But if you ever go to Southend, can I recommend you go to the Central Museum. As I've already said, next year there's going to be a huge exhibition of Ekco products in the museum, not just the few that I saw when I went last week, but lots of them on display, including some of the early papers, stuff about the tunnels they used during the air raids, and some about their secret locations developing World War II products. So lots of stuff. Obviously I haven't covered everything in this video, there's lots more I could have said, but it's just been one of my passions, if you like, to look at EK Cole and the Ekco brand and to bring some of it together, and hope you've enjoyed it. That's about it for now. As always, take care, and I'm going to dig out an old Ekco radio and have a look at it now. But once again, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and take care.